So let's show you how we belay here at Goose Pond. What we have here is a practice setup for the belay system. Whenever you have a belay system, you have a large anchor log or some sort of an anchor that's going to support most of the weight for the climber. To hook into it, we have an anchor rope here. This is what's doing the securing, connected to a carabiner. The carabiner is connected to our belay device, which in this case is a pyramid belaying device. The rope is fed in through here, goes around the carabiner, and comes out the other end. If I'm right-handed, I hook in with the anchor to my right. I hook my carabiner into the system, lock it down. In this manner, I'm not actually in the belay system. If the climber were to fall, the log would support the full weight, and my body would support very little of it. I could be pulled up a little, depending on my height and depending on my relative angle to the anchor log, but for the most part, the log, rather than me, is what's taking most of the weight. So, in order to climb, what we do, first thing we do is put on our gloves. You need some sort of a sturdy glove. You can use these for rappelling too. They need to be made of real leather rather than some sort of an artificial leather. Artificial leathers, which are usually made of plastic, are going to melt. You're going to need a sturdy glove that's not going to melt. The belay technique we teach here at Goose Pond, and is also part of the climbing merit badge, is called slip, slide, lock. To do it, you take your left hand, you hold it out about shoulder height. Take your right hand, you hold it about hip height when you start. Whenever the climber is climbing, the thing you want to realize is you want to be able to lock off the climber in case there's ever an accident or if he falls off. To lock off with this belay device or with a stitch plate or an ATC, you take your hand and you hold it backwards. This creates friction within the system, within the belay device, which keeps this rope from moving anywhere. But if you were to move your hand upwards, the rope's going to start to slip. This is what you would do if you were to lower the climber. But then again, if you lock off, he's not going anywhere. So to do slip, slide, lock, we keep our hand here, our right hand here. I pull up with my right hand, pulling rope through the belay device until it reaches my left hand. With my left hand, I grip the rope from my right hand, and I slide my right hand down. I let go, and I lock. I slip, I grip, I slide, I lock. I slip, I grip, I slide, I lock. My right hand must never, ever cross my left hand. If it's up here, there's no way for me to slide my hand backwards. In order for me to do that, I would have to let go of the rope. If that were to happen, that creates a major violation with this method, or with any form of climbing. With any form of climbing, your belay hand, your brake hand, must never, ever leave the rope. If the climber slips at this exact second when you let go, he's going to fly through. Therefore, this hand must never let go. If you're up here, climber starts falling, your hand hasn't let go, you can still brake, and he ain't going anywhere. Slip, grip, slide, lock. Slip, grip, slide, lock. Never let go with his hand. So, let's practice a little climbing. I'm going to show you how this is going to work. We have our climber here. We're going to hook him into the system. He's hooked in to his carabiner, which is attached to his harness. Everyone checks and rechecks. Always do a squeeze check. Make sure that this locking carabiner doesn't open, so we know he's good. So he's going to go up to our practice wall here. We go through a series of commands. The first thing our climber is going to ask when he's ready to go is,
"On belay, Chuck?"
I don't say anything. That's a signal for me to pull the slack out of the rope. I don't say anything back to the climber until I've pulled the rope nice and tight.
That's me.
Sorry, nice and taut. When it's ready, I say, belay on. Belay on Walt. I'm talking to the climber. We work on a first name basis because sometimes there may be multiple climbers climbing in multiple areas, and if that happens, there can be a lot of confusion over who's on belay or who's off belay or who's rappelling or whatnot. So I've said, belay on Walt.
Permission to climb, Chuck?
Permission granted, Walt.
Climbing.
Walt begins ascending. As he does that, as he's climbing, I rapidly do slip slide lock to pull him out. Okay, look at Walt. So he's going up there. I have him locked off. Walt can step back at any time, and I would have him.
Permission to descend, Chuck?
Permission granted, Walt. Walt's asked for permission to descend. I've granted that permission, and I slowly, I can just do this with one hand, lower him through the belay device. Lower him down through the belay device. If I were to take this rope and hold it back, I've locked him. Walt isn't going anywhere. So keep doing that, and go to Walt. Slowly letting him down. Very careful. Now note, as he's coming down too, this is very similar to the rappel technique. Walt's feet are kept straight against the practice block, so there's a buffer between his body and the wall. If his legs were to slip, his body and his face could fly right into the wall. So keep his legs straight as we lower him to the ground. When he gets to the ground, he says,
Off belay, Chuck.
I pull slack through and say, off belay, Walt.
Thank you, Chuck.
You're welcome, Walt. At this point, Walt can disconnect from the system, and I can prepare for the next climber, or I can unclip myself from the system. And so this is how we do belaying here at Goose Pond Scout Reservation.